Howdy, it's Jim Arado. Right now, I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and we are actually spending the night in a hotel, getting ready to go over to Vancouver Island. And we're looking out our hotel window at the nightlife and the night lights in Vancouver. I believe we're actually in a town called Richmond at this moment, which is, basically in Vancouver. But we're looking out. It's just a lovely town. And this is actually from several years ago. This is one of the first trips that I took my video recording camera with us. In fact, I think I might have bought my camera just for this trip. This is one of the earliest videos I ever made, and it is still one of my all-time favorites. I love Canada a lot. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that, but Canada is really special, and I don't think a lot of people get it. I love America. I especially love Kentucky, and I feel very, very patriotic towards my country and my area. But I'm big on Canada too. Okay, this is the next morning again, looking out the Richmond area of Vancouver. And just so you know, just to get your bearings, Vancouver and Vancouver Island are two totally different places. They're separated by some water, and Vancouver is not on Vancouver Island. So that can create some confusion. And again, just looking out of our window. This video actually is from 2014. This is February 2014. And it's a bit of a long story, but we had an opportunity come up to go to Vancouver Island, and we jumped on it. And this is, I pulled our car over before we got on our ferry to go over to Vancouver Island because of that guy, that eagle. And I was so impressed with him. And another guy kind of pulled over beside me. I was like, "Hey, did you see that eagle?" He's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a freaking eagle." And he just seemed so unimpressed. And I would find out later, there are eagles all over the place here. They are very common. And I didn't record it. I think I took some pictures. But at one point, we were looking at a tree line, and we counted over 20. They're just all over the place. Yeah, we're coming up onto the BC ferry. Oh no, we're on the ferry right now. Just looking around. Just showing you what it's like. And I think it was about $100 at that time, roughly, to do a round trip ferry ride on our car over to Vancouver Island. Check this out, by the way. Keep looking. You're going to see a killer whale. You're going to see him.
Coastal Cafe, featuring a wide selection from White Spot and Bright Garden, as well as other hot and cold entrees. The Sitka Coffee Place offers a relaxing coffee-house-inspired atmosphere with panoramic coastal views. Check out our great selection of books, sportswear, and other specialty items in our Passages gift shop.
Oh, you hear everybody at home screaming?
Everybody knows. You don't take
Killer whales?
Where?
Right here. Right under the boat here, but big sign.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. The wash is spin the dirt going on the side.
Cool.
Yeah, and there he was. I didn't mean to tease that one out so long, but I kind of like the ferry announcements too. But yeah, I got a very brief but definite video of a killer whale. And there's some bragging rights for me. I was pretty excited about that. Yeah, and there's a little lighthouse island we passed on the British Columbia ferry as we rode over. Just thought that looked really pretty. It's a little gloomy. The window's a little dirty. We actually get a better look at that on the way back. I just thought that was really attractive. But yeah, I got a lot to talk about. This video is a little bit over an hour long. I don't even want to tell you what I shrunk it down from, because everybody knows on YouTube, people enjoy watching a nice long video. Actually, that's not accurate, but I just, I love this video. I enjoy watching it myself. I love Canada. I love Vancouver Island. And you'll see why here in a moment. I do want to warn you, too, though. I do take some long videos of basically just the ocean. and there were moments when I would see some things and I would just have to stare for a while. So I've left a lot of that stuff on here just so you can check it out, because it was just so great to me. And we flew from Lexington to Dallas, Texas. I was actually looking over my journal, kind of rereading about what we did on this trip. And in Dallas, I make notes like this. We heard the Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run, which I thought was so appropriate. There's one of the gift shops on the BC ferry. And as you can tell, these ferries are really nice. This is comparable to me. I thought this was just as nice. It was as nice and relaxing as like a nice cruise ship. Obviously not on the scale, but it is a huge boat. You know, you kind of line up and you drive your car onto the boat, and then you can kind of hang out for a couple of hours and go to their shops. We had lunch on the ferry, and it's just lots of places just to go sit and relax. And it was a really nice trip. The staff was very nice. I wanted to mention, we actually drove up to the ferry, but we were there early. They told us, yeah, you can't line up yet, but they told us we're going to go get some coffee. They were very nice, and it was just a very pleasant experience. Also, wanted to mention right here, and this is going to be most of my video, we are on a Pacific Rainforest Adventure Tours tour, and just having a good old time. And that's Rhonda. Rhonda and Gary run this. And I think it was around $100 each for a 12-hour tour. Do the math. That's not a bad deal at all. Rhonda and Gary drove. There were 3 of us on our trip, and there was another couple that were local. So there were 5 of us plus Rhonda and Gary. You know, they're not making bank off of this. I hope they're doing good. But $100. They provided snacks. They talked the entire time. This to me was just a good dollar value. But they took us all over the place. We were on the little Pacific Trail up here. They took us to several parks. We did a ton of hiking, and we saw all sorts of critters. And this was just a lot of fun. But more about them later. But I wanted to talk about our trip as you kind of see what we saw. And it was rainy at times. On their adventure tours, we drove through snow, we drove through rain, kind of nice temperatures. We had our coats off at times, we had our winter coats on. We experienced all 4 seasons in 12 hours. And this was just a lot of fun. It was one of the most exciting things I've personally done on a trip ever. And you get views like that. So just take all that in. And I am going to stop talking at times so you can just hear the ocean. There's a lot of us mumbling and talking to ourselves at times too. But anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about our trip. So we flew out. We went Lexington to Dallas. Then we went to Vancouver. And on the flight over to Vancouver, there were several Canadians sitting near us. And they overheard us mention that we were going to Vancouver Island. And they insisted on telling us about some of their favorite things to do on the island. Because Canadians are nice people. That's a stereotype. Not a stereotype, but that's a stereotype that is absolutely true. Canadians are just always nice, friendly people. Oh, and we went by a mall in Vancouver. The one evening that we spent in Vancouver before going over to Vancouver Island. And it was hockey night in Canada, which is a big deal, and there were people clustered around TV sets at the mall watching the hockey games. It was very sweet. Of course, this time, too, the Olympics were going on. Everywhere we went, they were talking about Team Canada. And we bought some shirts and stuff, and we were cheering. We were cheering for the U.S., and we were also cheering for Canada, too. It just felt right. We felt sort of adopted by Canada at that point. We drove from our hotel. We got to Vancouver, we rented a car, we went to our hotel, spent the night, which we had to do because the way the ferries run. And by the way, look at all these great trees. Not to get too distracted, but... So then we drove over from our hotel the next day. We drove to Tsawwassen, I believe is how it's pronounced. It starts with a T, for the ferry. And we stopped at a place called Petrus Coffee, where they also did ceramic classes, and it was just a cozy little coffee shop. Made me want to move to the area just to hang out at Petra's Coffee. It was so nice. We saw a ton of eagles. We took the ferry over to Nanoose Bay. We drove through Nanaimo, which is a pretty famous little town, but we ended up not really stopping there. Oh, and while we're here near that marker, let me read that marker to you, just because I'm always interested in shipwrecks and that sort of thing. That sign says Graveyard of the Pacific. Near here lies the shipwreck of the Pass of Melfort, a British four-masted bark. Built of steel, she was the length of 7 school buses, but still no match for the waves that pounded this shore. In the early hours of December 26, 1905, this huge sailing ship struck the jagged reefs in front of you. Traveling in ballast, the ship was on its way from Panama to Port Townsend, Washington. It was carried north past the mouth of Juan de Fuca Strait by strong currents and a fierce southwest gale. By daylight, all that remained visible of the vessel were 3 bodies and assorted flotsam, smashed ships' boats, wooden buckets carrying the name of the ill-fated vessel, a white-painted figurehead. Bits of the cabin structure and various personal effects were seen floating in the small bay to your left. All hands, said to have numbered at least 27, including 1 woman, were drowned in the ragged waters. Even within sight of shore, massive breaking seas prevented anyone from reaching firm ground alive. Anyway, I just think that is really fascinating, and I just wanted to take a moment to read that to you as we were looking out there. But yeah, and as I'm slinging the camera around, I love, I think most of us, you've been to Florida and, areas on the East Coast where there's a beach and there's sand, and then there's a big city. I think that's what a lot of us think of when we think of the ocean. But out here, you see the ocean, and then, you're kind of in this green environment. It's just very foreign and very overwhelming, too. And it, even as I sit here now looking at it, it kind of gets to me just how perfect it is. So, anyway, I wanted to, let me back up a little bit. I wanted to mention just this trip and how this trip came about. My wife's aunt and uncle are very smart people who've traveled the world, and they're just they're the kind of people that if they say, hey, go to this museum, you're gonna love it, there's a bunch of paintings, you might say to yourself, who wants to see a bunch of paintings? Which, I like paintings myself, but if my wife's aunt and uncle suggest that you do something, you do it. They're a very good judge of things that are interesting and places to go when they travel. And they are big on Vancouver Island. And they had been here many times. And they had worked out it out to where they could come through a timeshare kind of thing. They were able to come here quite a bit. And one particular year they couldn't go, but the hotel and a place to stay was provided. So they allowed us to use that. So, we very luckily had a place to stay. So we had no excuse not to go to Vancouver Island. Check that out. Ridiculous. Just perfect. So beautiful. So anyway, so my wife's aunt and uncle sort of set this up for us, which was very kind of them, and we always know to take their advice. Anyway, the particular place we stayed at, the morning after we arrived, they did a presentation on things to do at the island. A fella named Gary was doing that presentation, and it was not quite an hour and a half. They had coffee and snacks. A few people showed up for it, and he had a 650 picture slideshow that he kind of showed behind him as he talked, and he told us all about the island. It really got into the animals and the plants and just a lot of the nature that you can take in on the island. So we listened to his presentation, and it was a very just, you could tell Gary cared about the island, and he was big into promoting it. And he mentioned at the very end of his presentation, he might have taken 2 minutes to let us know about some tours that his company does around the island. And he mentioned that on Wednesdays they do a 12-hour tour, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They pick you up where you're staying, and they drive you around to see some of the great stuff on the island. And, like I said, it was $100. And, all the stuff that he mentioned, the places they went to and everything, we were staying on the kind of the eastern part of the island. They would take you kind of through the island from east to west, get you over to kind of the westernmost point and back. Man, there's like one road that goes through the island too that way, and it's a very curvy old logging road. By the way, I loved seeing all these holes and stuff. You get, little nests and places that animals were staying, and we just saw tons of that as we were walking around. Anyway, gosh, I'm sorry. I'll try not to get distracted anymore. So yeah, Gary mentioned that he and his wife had this touring company, and they did that sort of thing. So, after Gary's presentation, we told him, we want to do your Wednesday tour. We want the 12-hour tour. So yeah, they picked us up promptly at 7 o'clock that Wednesday and drove us all over the island, told us about the people, gave us a history lesson. Rhonda, I think, talked most of the time, and we were hanging on every word. She's a great storyteller, and again, she cares a lot about the island and what it has to offer. A lot, lots of old growth trees. She talked a lot about, in America we call them Native Americans. In Canada, the phrase is First Nations, and she told us a lot about that, and how how the Canadians had treated their First Nations people, and they had seen some bad treatment too, even going up into fairly modern times. Anyway, I could go on and on about that. I'm not going to, though. Go to Vancouver Island to take their tour, because it's just so perfect.
Closing lighthouses and downsizing and firing all these people. So we're wondering whether there hasn't been any maintenance in the bells.
Yeah, and I can watch that stuff all day. It especially growing up in Kentucky, landlocked Kentucky, we have our we have our bodies of water, but nothing like the ocean. And that is just really something. And again, you see more just crazy, beautiful trees, water. This was just such a great day. The two other people on our trip too, there was an older lady named Hazel, and then there was also a fella named Peter, and they had both spent time in other countries before settling down on Vancouver Island. Just a really neat place. Everybody we talked to had an interesting story, and this was just something special. I wanted to get back to growing up in Kentucky. Very, very rural western Kentucky. We couldn't get cable. Cable didn't come to us. We had our 3 channels, later on 4, that you could pick up with an antenna. We eventually bought a satellite dish, one of those old, big, huge, clunky satellite dishes like you see in Empire Strikes Back. It was massive. And we could pick up some channels, but we didn't get all the channels that we thought we would. We thought we'd get MTV, but we didn't get MTV. Instead, we could pick up Much Music out of Canada, which I think is now just called Much. And yeah, it was Canada's version of MTV. And it was actually a lot of fun. They played all the top 40 stuff you would expect back in the early 90s. But I was also exposed to a lot of music that my friends were not exposed to. And I remember when like Sarah McLachlan came out and Bare Naked Ladies, who are pretty much household names now. But I remember when they were kind of the little bands, kind of little knowns out of Canada. And I honestly didn't think Bare Naked Ladies would make it the way they did. But I thought the Northern Pikes were going to take over America. And if you know about Canadian music, that never happened. The Northern Pikes are still pretty big. But I love the Northern Pikes. I love Doug and the Slugs. I love the Tragically Hip. Blue Rodeo. There's a lot of bands that came out of Canada that I liked. And some of them, just didn't make it, but I still really enjoy hearing them. And a lot of times when I'm working on my iPod, you can pick up Canadian stations. There's all sorts of apps where you can just start listening to, radio stations all over the world. In fact, Vancouver Island has the Eagle. I listen to the Eagle a lot. But I enjoy thinking, hey, I might catch the Northern Pikes today, or Crash Vegas. And, it's exciting to me when I hear one of those songs come on the radio. Doug and the Slugs I like a lot. They had a song called Day by Day. It's just one of my all-time favorite songs. And I was really glad that I was exposed to Much Music growing up. The music is still rock, but it had a very folk feel also. Jane Seabury is also one of my all-time favorites. Really the only Canadian one that I've been able to catch in concert. And I love her. Her Bound by the Beauty album. Anyway, I could talk about Canadian music all day long. But, I developed an appreciation for Canadian art and for the music. And, when we lived in Cleveland, we could go up to Canada. We would go up to Niagara Falls quite a bit. Toronto. We've visited probably half the Canadian provinces at this point. And I want to make sure we visit all of them at some point in the future. But it's just, to me, it's always exciting getting to Canada. They're I don't even know how to explain it, but the music lyrically, I think they put a little bit more into what they do. They're just a tad bit more artsy. They give you a little bit more for your money when it comes to music and that sort of thing. When people ask me what's the most exciting trip we've ever taken, bam, Vancouver Island. And most Americans are unaware of Vancouver Island. And I think that's because Canada does not want you to know about it. It's too cool. They don't want us invading that. They don't want us coming up there and mucking everything up, to their credit. But yeah, so we my wife and I like a lot of Canadian TV also. And man, gosh, this is going to sound almost sappy, but we like Heartland. Do you watch Heartland out of Canada? It's been on for 15 seasons or something like that now. It's a cute little show that we like a lot. And there's a song by a girl named Jen Grant, Dreamer, that intros that show. And if you watch that show and you hear that Dreamer and see the intro with the horses and the beautiful scenery in that part of Canada, you're going to want to watch the rest of the show. It's just a really nice setup for a cute little show. And if you've watched the Anne of Green Gables Netflix series, the newest one, oh my gosh, that intro with the Tragically Hip song, man, that makes my hair stand up. I mean, it's just a very, very artsy intro. And and by the way, if I say name a Canadian rock band, if the first band you name is Rush, go out and look up some more Canadian bands. And if you don't know who the Tragically Hip are, look them up, because Man, those guys rock, and they get really deep. And I've really been on a tragically hip kick lately. Anyway, enough of that. I just wanted to mention, we're very big on Canada. Oh yeah, and while we were here back in 2014, and this is how cool Canada is. They issue sheets of stamps with some of the rock bands on it. And this particular year, I picked up some little sheets of stamps, and they had a Tragically Hip stamp, along with the Guess Who, another favorite band of mine. And I should talk about the Guess Who at some other point, but I did get to see one of the more recent versions of the Guess Who back in the 90s. On a riverboat casino in Evansville, Indiana, and then I got to meet them afterwards. They were really nice guys. But yeah, I've always just been big on Canadian music. Gordon Lightfoot, there's another guy I love. But anyway, yeah, enough of that. I wanted to say on the eco tour we're taking here. We ate lunch at the Matterson House, which was really incredible. I didn't take any pictures or videotape, but it was just a nice little home, basically, with really just nice meals. Everybody loved that. It was a real treat. And I remember we went through Ucluelet, and we went through the Pacific Rim National Park, and we collected shells at the beach behind the Best Western Tofino. And I believe Tofino is about the farthest west I've been in my life, not counting my trip to Hawaii. But that's about one of the furthest west points you can go. Whew. Anyway, I mean, it's a very western spot, and we saw people surfing there. I'll have some more video. I'll have some video of Tofino up before we get out of here.
Closer to the lighthouse and get some even bigger.
Something else too about this particular trip that I thought was interesting. Of course, people did comment on our accents here and there. And we had our friend Renee with us, who has a very thick accent. It's adorable, though. You might hear it on this video. This was going to be a trip. There were going to be 5 of us going on this particular trip. And a couple of friends had to pull out. So it ended up being my wife and I and our friend Renee. And we... Renee, actually, I need to give her credit, because I put up some pictures here at the end, and also... she got a little bit of video on her phone that I neglected to get at the Parrot Sanctuary we went to. So some of this video was courtesy of my dear friend Renee. We went to college with her, and she and I have had careers in social work over the years, and just have some great, crazy stories about travels and social work. Check out the lighthouse, by the way. Anyway, everywhere we went, people would comment on the accents, and it was great hearing their accents too. I'm big on accents. But when we mentioned that we were from Kentucky, literally everybody brought up Daniel Boone, the Kentucky Derby, and bourbon. I had some friends that went to, I believe, Ireland not too long ago, and everybody brought up Kentucky Fried Chicken. You see what's important to different people. And by the way, we just passed a sign about sea foam. As we look at some sea foam, let me read to you just a little bit from that sign. Let me pull that up again. I'm sorry. Yeah, sea foam. What looks like soap suds on the surf is actually tiny, single-celled plants mixed with air and water. Sea foam is created when waves or strong winds mix air into the ocean water. Organic matter in the sea, mostly from dead, microscopic plants, contains protein that gives the water enough surface tension to form lasting bubbles. Strong surf and winds pile the bubbles up into the familiar suds-like masses common in the surf and along the shore. This common sight results from the prolific reproduction of tiny single-celled plants of the sea called phytoplankton. Diatoms and other types of phytoplankton will bloom when conditions are favorable. When the cycle ends, billions of plankton die, releasing the organic material that creates the foam. Anyway, just a nice little informative marker there that I thought was pretty cool. And check out that view. It's a little more sunny here than in some of the other spots.
You see the eagles, Jim? I got some pictures, Speedy. I took some. It's gonna zoom in so good.
This way.
You got it?
Yeah.
Down there. You see them on the beach.
Wait,
Oh, yeah, this is a big surfing area.
wait, where are they?
They're down there. But we have to get that in.
They are surfing.
Got good eyes. Oh, what's that? I see somebody on the beach. Yes, I think that Peter said they're surfing.
They're just surfing. Every time we've spoken to them, they said they're on this one.
Yeah, it's cold. Sheesh. Even in a wetsuit. Yeah, so this is the interpretive center, and there's a restaurant here. But this used to be the inn. This used to be the state.
Yeah, but there is weddings in here.
Oh, it wasn't the other place?
No,
It
I
was-
recognize it. But the other place, I thought, well, it doesn't
Look,
look
this.
right.
Oh, it must have been this.
Yeah, it's quite a big.
I don't think so.
If you ever did.
Well, yes, we have but I haven't ever seen that. I have seen them in lots of white.
Oh, really? I mean, this is the only place in the world to this restaurant. There's a pub heading north from where it is. That was Pacific.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that last little bit there was, I believe, at the Pacific Rim National Park, which was not staffed at that moment. Their little visitor center wasn't open, and neither was their restaurant. But it was very, very just a pretty place to be, and a great place to kind of have some rainy weather and watch waves and surfers, which I thought was crazy. We'll see some more surfers here in a little bit. Right now, there's a totem pole, and that is behind the Best Western Tofino, which is kind of it's a very private place, but Gary and Rhonda had special permission to take us there to go collect shells and kind of see what they had going on down here. And this, in my memory, I really remember this vividly. Just hanging out on this beach and looking for shells. And Peter, who was with us on this trip, he was big into photography, and he knows, he was telling us all about the shells, which was very interesting. We would pick up a shell and say, hey, what do you know about this? And he could tell us all about it, which was really cool having somebody like that with us on this journey this particular day. And Gary and Rhonda, along with bringing snacks and drinks and that sort of thing, and also extra coats and raincoats if anybody needed them, they brought along some nice big, some of those big Ziploc bags, those big sturdy Ziploc bags, so that we would have a bag for shell collecting, which was really thoughtful of them and very, very appreciated. And there's a little guy starting to surf. We actually didn't see anybody standing up on a surfboard or anything. Those waves looked pretty powerful, but there were people in wetsuits, and it was very cold. It was cold here in general. The water was obviously cold, but I guess those wetsuits protect everybody. But yeah, there were a few other people kind of hanging out on the beach. And this just really stands out in my mind. And I remember there was a cute little gift shop up at the hotel we went through. And Gary and Rhonda took us to, I believe it was right here in this town. There was a nice little strip of shops. I don't want to compare it to New England. It was sort of New Englandish, but very Canadian.
There's a barnacles on the outside, and there's a.
Is it alive or dead?
No, that's dead.
Okay.
And inside there's a little organism, and these are the ones suck onto the rocks.
Oh.
And that was Peter telling us a little bit about some shell stuff there. And I remember him telling us some more when I wasn't taping. And I wish I taped that because it was fascinating stuff. And another little fella out there trying to surf. But yeah, this little area was just great. And Tofino really stands out in my mind. I remember we went to Tofino Chocolate, or Chocolate Tofino, I think was the name of the place, which is famous for their chocolates. And we bought some candy bars, and they're very famous for their hot chocolate. And I got a large, which was in a very small cup. And I would find out later that large and that small cup was plenty. It was a very thick. It almost tasted. It reminded me of like just melted chocolate that you were drinking. It was the best hot chocolate I've ever had. Period. It was incredible. It's definitely the kind of thing you wouldn't want to get addicted to because you would gain weight quickly. But I had just an unbelievable cup of hot chocolate from Tofino Chocolate. And we bought a couple candy bars we would eat later, and it was just a really cool little place. And I did want to say a little bit more about Tofino. Again, Gary and Rhonda took us to some of the shops up through there. And, of course they had the basic, little shops with things made in China that said Tofino on it. There were some cute shops with lots of local books, postcards, and I can't remember there was one particular shop where I bought just the crappy little, it's a little miniature surfboard keychain with like an airbrush looking Tofino on it. And, I picked that up. I love picking up knickknacks like that when I travel. Oh, look at that little doggy. But I have that hanging over my desk. And yeah, I know it's a little, kind of cheap made kind of thing. But that makes us think of our trip a lot. Oh, by the way, we're at Fanny Bay now. This is we're no longer on our eco tour, but Gary told us about this place to see sea lions, so we'll check them out real quick. There's one that just chased a bird off. Oh, man. There's some along this boat over here, Renee. quick before I forget, I hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to leave the audio up on those guys. I enjoy hearing their little sounds. But yeah, one more thing about Tofino. There was, oh, and by the way, there's some I believe sea lions swimming right there, and that's us back on the BC ferry going back. Oh, those are yeah, those are dolphins. Check them out. They were at a little bit of a distance. I was zooming in, but yeah, those are cool. Yeah, but I just wanted to mention one more thing about Tofino. We did go into the gallery for Roy Henry Vickers, a Canadian First Nations artist, and he had some really cool prints, and that was a treat. And I've just lots of cool stuff there. We went into a post office in Tofino. You know, I collect postmarks, and there were 2 young girls working there that were really nice. And I remember they could have done stand-up comedy. They were really funny, but they appreciated the history of the area too. And it was just, Tofino was a really neat little place, and we only got to spend a couple hours, well, probably more like an hour or so there, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and again, we're back on the BC ferry, watching dolphins playing around. And that, yeah, it's just, it seemed like everywhere we went, we were seeing all sorts of great wildlife. Even on our eco tour, I know there's a breed of deer that I think is only seen in that area. And we saw one very briefly from the window of the van, but he was out of sight within a second or two. I couldn't even get my camera out to take a picture or video. But that of course was a real treat. Just so you have it, here's us leaving, pulling away on the BC ferry.
Is what? No. It wasn't what? It wasn't sugar plum. Well, yeah, no. I've been into the shop to see what's on there. Or some mint or something. And then the next thing I know, we haven't even moved yet.
Welcome aboard the Coastal Inspiration. Please come up and enjoy our onboard services. Please note, Deck 5 is closed for this sailing. However, we invite you to enjoy the many services offered on Deck 6. Visit our Coastal Cafe, featuring a wide selection from Bright Garden, as well as other hot and cold entrees. The Sitka Coffee Place offers a relaxing coffee house-inspired atmosphere with panoramic coastal views. Check out our great selection of books, sportswear, and other specialty items in our Passages gift shop. There is also a video arcade, children's play area, workstations, phones, an ATM machine, washrooms, and a parent's room with baby change table. To make vehicle reservations for your return trip, you can call toll-free from any payphone or star BCF on most cell phones. Just a reminder, pets are restricted to the vehicle decks. Please do not leave your luggage unattended. Smoking is permitted in the designated smoking areas only, located outside on Deck 5. If you need help finding anything, just ask any crew member. Thank you for sailing with BC Ferries.
Maybe that might be a good picture angle for that little town you were trying to get earlier.
Yeah, and I wanted to include that little announcement in there, just because. And as we left again, I think it was a couple of hours to go back from the island over to Vancouver, and I was just fascinated with some of the ships we would see. And I was also fascinated with watching the island grow smaller as we pulled away. And I watched this for quite a while. Lots of boats that again, these aren't the kind of boats. Some of them aren't the kind of boats you would see on the Ohio River. So this was just a lot of fun to me to watch this. Yeah, we would see some cool birds and things like that too. It was disappointing leaving the island, though. It is special. And there it goes. Have you been to Vancouver Island, though? I'd love to hear from some other people that know a bit about Vancouver Island. Here in a little bit, once we get over to the other side, I know we have lunch at a place called the Rose and Crown Pub. The Rose and Crown Pub. which was near the ferry, and we had a really nice meal there. I always try to have French onion soup when I'm in Canada, and I was able to have some great French onion soup there. They were playing good music, and they had a lot of Canadian sports memorabilia and things like that on the walls, and I just thought that was great. Again, more boats you don't see in Kentucky. And there's that lighthouse we passed again. Kind of a nicer picture of it from this particular angle, and I just enjoyed that. Yeah, and we would go back to Vancouver. We would spend another night actually in the exact same hotel room we were in before, and it was nice getting to spend a little time in Vancouver. We're talking about trying to do another trip just to Vancouver at some point in the future. And I had a pretty good focus on that bird as he flew around, so that guy's living the life. Vancouver Island, though, we loved it. There were a ton of great coffee shops. In fact, I've got a few pictures here towards the end of the video I've included. It seemed like we stopped at a lot of just really perfectly cozy coffee shops. They all knew how to make good coffee. Nobody compromised. One of the knick-knack kind of things I like to collect is coffee sleeves when we travel. And I still have some of my coffee sleeves from all the good coffee shops we went to on Vancouver Island. And just, this breaks my heart. This is a picture of the World Parrot Refuge. I've always been a bird person. I love birds. I don't have a bird now, but I've had parakeets before when I was growing up. And this was a refuge for basically parrots and birds that, who their owners have passed away or had to abandon them. And I thought it was a very sweet place. And of course, there were some beautiful birds eager to interact with humans. Yeah, in 2016, the lady that ran that, I believe, passed away. And it was a big, big deal. A lot of stuff went down. Basically, that place closed up, and they were adopting out the parrots. I actually looked into trying to adopt one, but there was a whole taking a bird across the border thing that we couldn't get past. I didn't look that much into it, but it was a sweet thing that obviously just fell apart. Yeah, here's the airport we went into in Vancouver, and look how cozy and nice and pleasant that is compared to most airports you walk into. Lots of art, lots of culture, just beautiful. That's the hotel we stayed at in Vancouver, and there was a picture earlier just a moment ago. It was a picture of Vancouver from our airplane as we came into the airport that I thought was great. This was a great hotel. I'm trying to remember. It was just a very nice hotel. I'd go there again. It was a nice mall. We went to the Bay. Just pleasant. Lots of nice little shops. We walked over there from our hotel. This was in Vancouver, not on Vancouver Island. Inside the mall, yeah, it was just cute seeing all the proud Canadian, pro Team Canada stuff that they had, and we felt very Canadian on this trip. Lots of little older fellows sitting around in the little kind of setting areas with TVs. I mentioned this before, watching watching hockey. And yeah, here was a post office. I want to say the Richmond post office. Yeah, stopped there for a postmark. As you know, I love post offices and I collect postmarks when we travel. This was inside when you went to the ferry, when you went to the BC ferry to go over to Vancouver Island. They have some little shops. While you wait for your ferry, you pull up in your car, you get into lines, and then you get out of your car and you can go over to these little shops. And my wife's aunt and uncle recommended that we go over there. They have nice stuff. Generally, the prices were reasonable, and they had unique things. We found some nice stuff, nice little coffee shop areas, just kind of a cozy place to hang out and shop, and we enjoyed it. Yeah, and a couple of pictures on the ferry. Look at this. This is nice. This is cozy. This reminded me of being on a nice cruise ship, going on a cruise. Just very comfortable. Comfortable, clean. And I did talk to some of the staff on the ferry, and they seemed to enjoy their jobs. And I just thought that was great. And I know sometimes when I'm listening to Vancouver Island radio, they make announcements about the ferry schedule. This was inside one of the grocery stores we went into. We actually didn't eat out a whole lot. We went to the grocery store, which was down from where we were staying on the island, and we bought soups, lots of soups and sandwich stuff. And there was just a mileage marker, Port Alberni, Ucluelet, and Tofino on the road that we noticed. And again, you can see the snowy conditions on the road. That was another reason I was glad Gary drove on our eco tour and I wasn't driving. Here's a nice sign about some of the trees we saw and how they're old and they may fall without warning. We did not witness any trees falling, but I thought it was nice of the Canadians to put that up. I forget which town this was in, but I just thought that was so pretty. They had these pretty signs up, and it was just so colorful, especially contrasted behind that sky there. That's Serious Coffee. That was one of the many, many great little coffee shops we stopped at. And I think that one was kind of close to where we were staying, and we liked that place a lot. Oh, and this is a Steampunk Coffee, which was in Port Alberni. It was a coffee shop with a steampunk theme, and they had good coffee. We actually had lunch there one day. We had soup and sandwiches, and it was just really nice. This was Karma Coffee. That was another coffee shop we stopped at. A little fella ran this place, and we talked to him about traveling and coffee. Yeah, that guy. I forget his name, but he was gold. We liked their coffee a lot, and we actually ended up buying some coffee to take home with us. But we liked what they were doing. Very, very independent spirit. And just a great place. Oh, and we had lunch at a place called Lefty's. They had good food, and it was ran by, I believe, 3 people who were Southpaws. And as a fellow Southpaw, I felt obligated to patronize their restaurant. We had some great soup. Oh, man. Yeah. Just a great meal there. Very hearty soup. It was just wonderful. In fact, I remember that just being like one of the greatest meals I've had. I forget what park we were in, but we saw this guy, and Renee named him Sugar Plum. And we always reference Sugar Plum. You know, anytime we go to Canada, we ask if we might see Sugar Plum. But and here was the coffee, or the bar that I mentioned earlier, the Rose and Crown, which was all decked out in their Canadian flags, and they were all excited about the Olympics, and it was just a really nice atmosphere. I had a great sandwich, and check out that bowl of French onion soup. That was something special also. But we liked that a lot. Yeah, there was the tour bus. Yeah, there's their phone number if you want to write that down if you're going to be in Vancouver Island for they might have changed their phone number by now, but and I remember that Gary and Rhonda showed us some incredible First Nations art, a lot of totem poles and things like that. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, we stopped and saw a lot of that kind of stuff. I took more pictures than video of some of that, though.